Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and realizing that Earth decided to spin sideways. Not a small tilt, but a full 90 degrees. Suddenly, the equator and the poles have swapped places. Your weather app would just give up and say, "Good luck out there." So, what happens when Earth rotates 90 degrees? Let's break it down first. Some basics. Right now, Earth spins around an axis that's tilted about 23.5 degrees. That's why we get seasons. The poles are icy because they get very little direct sunlight, and the tropics are hot because the sun shines almost straight down. Pretty simple, Dot. Now picture Earth's axis turning a full 90 degrees. The North Pole wouldn't point toward the stars anymore. Instead, it would be pointing straight at the sun for half the year, which means for 6 months straight, the Arctic would be roasting under non-stop sunlight. Then, for the other 6 months, it would be frozen in total darkness. Goodbye, polar bears. Hello, confused penguins. But the poles aren't the only places that change. The equator, which used to be hot and sunny, now points sideways. That means the equator would get sunlight at a really low angle all year. Instead of beaches and palm trees, the equator would turn into one giant, gloomy twilight zone, the world's favorite vacation spot, probably replaced with icy tundra. Meanwhile, the continents that are currently mid-latitude like North America, Europe, and China would now take turns frying and freezing depending on the season. Imagine living in New York where summer is 24 hours of blazing sunshine for months, and winter is endless night colder than Antarctica. Half the year, you'd be sunburned. The other half, you'd freeze solid. So what about life? Plants, animals, and well, us. Plants depend on regular cycles of sunlight and darkness. 6 months of non-stop daylight would fry crops, and 6 months of darkness would kill them off. That means food supplies collapse. Oceans would also change dramatically. Ice sheets would grow and melt in extreme cycles, throwing sea levels and currents completely out of balance. The Gulf Stream, which keeps Europe relatively warm, might just shut down. And remember, humans built cities and farms based on today's mild, predictable climate. With a sideways Earth, massive parts of the planet would become nearly uninhabitable. Civilization would be forced to move toward the few zones that still get something like normal conditions, probably along the edges between the boiling hot half and the frozen dark half. Think narrow bands of survival wrapped around the globe. But wait, it gets weirder. Earth's rotation affects wind and ocean currents through something called the Coriolis effect. With the axis sideways, hurricanes and jet streams wouldn't behave the same. Weather patterns would be completely scrambled. We might see superstorms circling in bizarre directions, deserts where forests used to be, and ice sheets forming in what are currently tropical seas. Even migration patterns of animals would collapse. Birds that rely on seasonal sunlight to know when to fly, totally lost. Some would migrate straight into deadly winters. Meanwhile, animals near the equator like monkeys, jaguars, and toucans would face cold. They're not built to survive. All right, now let's zoom out for the big reveal. If Earth really rotated 90 degrees, the biggest effect isn't just crazy weather. It's that the planet would split into two extreme worlds. One half would be cooked under non-stop sun for months at a time, while the other half froze in endless night. The Earth would stop being the balanced, life-friendly planet we know, and start looking a lot more like a survival game. The comfortable middle ground where humans thrive. Pretty much gone. In other words, a 90-degree tilt wouldn't just ruin your summer vacation plans. It could wipe out ecosystems, crash agriculture, and force humans into desperate migration zones. Earth itself would still be here, spinning away, but life as we know it would be in serious trouble. So, what's the takeaway? The reason Earth is habitable isn't just because it's the right distance from the sun, it's because of the balance our tilt, our spin, and our orbit all work together to create stable climates. Tip that balance too far, and suddenly we're living on a planet that's half desert, half frozen wasteland. Kinda makes you appreciate the quiet, boring 23.5-degree tilt we have now, right? If you enjoyed this sideways spin through science, give the video a like, drop your wildest what-if idea in the comments, and subscribe for more brain-bending explorations, because who knows, next time we might tilt the moon instead.